everyone to next edition of Spry webinar. I am very happy and very excited here to have my co-host, Michael Silva, as part of this webinar. And we're doing something a little different today. We are going to really focus and discuss topics that are most pertinent to allied health community and allied health industry today. So this is going to be a little bit different than just product focus. And because we're really privileged to have Michael be part of this process. So this will be a wonderful use of the next hour to really discuss what is here and how can we make this setting better. So first, let me introduce Michael. Michael is a expert and a coach, and really is a leader in an allied health space. And I'll just read Michael's bio. Michael knows what it takes to build something from nothing. He grew up in a small business, and he learned early the grit, creativity, and relationship building that it takes to succeed. By 1995, he was making his mark in the fitness world, and just a few years later, he became an orthopedic and sports medicine physical therapist. For 2 decades, Michael served as president and founder of Foundation Performance Sports Medicine, growing it into a leading outpatient physical therapy practice with 3 offices across 2 states before successfully selling the business. Along the way, he developed Run Strong, a comprehensive conditioning program that impacted athletes and recreational runners to the Olympians and world record holders. His work has taken him across the U.S. to educate, inspire, and collaborate through lectures, clinics, notes, speeches, and panel appearances. Today, Michael's mission is simple: help private practice owners and entrepreneurs thrive. He believes in great businesses are built to 2 things: authentic relationship and relentless focus on customer experience. Drawing on decades of leadership, team building, and strategic growth experience, he equips owners with tools, mindset, and clarity to not just hit their goals, but to surpass them. Whenever you are starting from scratch or scaling for the next big leap, Michael is committed to helping you build a business that's both profitable and deeply fulfilling. So without any further ado, Michael, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you, Alex. I feel kind of old after that introduction and a little bit tired now.
Oh, yeah, that it's a subjective state, right? A subjective state of mind.
Right.
But it is so wonderful, and I think so. I've known Michael just for a while, and I have never had a conversation that was not fruitful and fulfilling, because it's just such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and it's so great to borrow from it. So I think today we'll cover big topics that are really approaching in our industry. And the first topic that I want to discuss is really like this oppressive workplace shortage of PTs in allied health and in PT clinics, right? So we have a statistic that we are forecast to have a shortage of 12,000 PTs in the United States, and something like 75% of all practices are looking to hire and can't find a validated client to hire. So like, what's your take on this, and how do you see this problem being resolved?
Man, that's $1 million question there, Alex. As we all know, there's many different factors that are contributing to that. One from the schooling, not getting enough kids to get into the programs. Post-COVID or during COVID, the mass exodus we've had of quality therapists leaving, burnout. The return on investment from education is turning a lot of people off. There's so many of those things that, we all know that. And if the prediction is right, what'd you say, by 2037, we'll be doing okay staffing wise. So
Yeah.
another decade. So everyone just hold on tight. But no, I think we talked about this briefly, Alex, is that I think this whole term burnout is, I can't have a conversation with really anyone these days without it coming up. And I think it's always been around, but I think now just more than ever, from all those factors we talked about, it's a real thing. And I think business owners, managers, we need to be aware of it and arm ourselves with strategies to help reduce that, so we don't continue to see quality therapists who probably don't want to leave the profession, but feel for their own health and well-being they need to. So I think there's many factors that we could discuss that aren't maybe even in the research. Like, one thing I do know, just from having employees for over 20 years, is if the person is not feeling passionate about where they're working, who they're working on, if they're not treating the patients they really want to treat, then there's going to be unfulfillment. And I believe that is a huge part of some of the burnout and some of the attrition issues we're seeing in our profession. I think people are finding a hard time. They might be taking jobs, whether it's just for the big benefit package or maybe for the location, and not necessarily looking at who they're going to be spending their time treating and who they're going to be working with. I don't know. What do you think about that as a cause?
I think it's spot on. I think so. The one like interesting observation when I actually parted from clinical care about 3 years ago, I was surprised to see that some of what I thought were the best clinicians, the best professionals in our industry, were reaching out to see like what are the steps, how can they also leave, and so like in a way there's a little bit of this dissonance. So the best products of our education systems are actually not happy with where they are, and it could be a byproduct of the environment we put them in, right? So how do we shape this environment that's both prolific financially and successful financially, but also supportive of the personnel? So I think you're right, Michael. Burnout is a term that's often used, but I think we need to label it the right way. Burnout wouldn't be there if we didn't shape the market for what it is, but it's now a precipitating slide down, right? But so it's right on, and but I do think that there is a way forward, and as you were saying, I think like under the right constraints, we can all make things better. We can support clinicians to do what they do. So with that, I actually want to discuss another topic that's actually really been on top of mind, which is direct access in the United States, and direct access from the standpoint of payers. So 46 states in U.S. have some form of direct access, with over 30 states having almost complete direct access. So any individual that needs a musculoskeletal care can access it independent of physician oversight. And yet there is a divide between how direct access is practiced, where we only have like 5% utilization of direct access principles, and we have payers that are refusing to join the direct access flow, where they're just failing to reimburse direct access for what they could be, which we know economically it's just a huge saver. So how significant is this disconnect, and what do we have to do to endorse direct access with private practice owners, with clinicians, so that they go out and they actually evangelize this direct access to the payer systems, to their community further? So what do you think on that?
I mean, you're loading this with all the $1 million questions, Alex. It's I think one is awareness. I've actually talked to some therapists who don't know that we do have direct access, and when they're aware, they don't know that it's nationwide. And yes, in all the states we legally have direct access, but now it's the big payers. Okay, I hate always pointing fingers at the big payers, but now we got to get them on board to acknowledge it and be able to get rid of the pre-authorization and doctor visits first, so we can actually truly have direct access and practice what we're trying to do, is being the primary care, the initial visit for musculoskeletal pain. Some of that is like our profession continuing to try to get the payers on board, showing the statistics, and I know you're the stats guy, so we know that patients get better and it costs less money when they come see us first, correct? According to the research, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'm not the one. I mean, we're many people in our profession who are fighting that fight and going to the payers and trying to get this change. The APTA and other people in our profession, which is great. We need more of that because we have to keep showing the data. And I think without the data, where we can just say that we're going to save you money, we can just say that there's going to be better care and better outcomes, but we need the numbers. Like, the proof is in the pudding, right? And I think now more than ever, it's not that hard to collect the data. Like back when I started, I'm going to date myself, paper charts. I had a schedule book that we used to open, and I can't use pen in the schedule book because you can't erase pen if someone cancels or reschedules. So it was hard to collect data about that back then. But now with the practice management systems, the EMRs, AI, all the technology that's coming on, we can collect this data. We can prove, what our worth and our value is. And if we can continue to do that and get these big payers to change their minds about this, that would be great. Now, on top of that, we just got to let our communities know that we have direct access, right? I think there's a whole rebranding and identity shift we need in the public for what they think physical therapy truly is.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think I'm so happy you mentioned data. And so there are two steps to data. I think that we have to effectively capture this data. And we have systems that are designed for this effective data capture, whether it's patient-reported outcome measures, whether it's clinical data, objective measures in the clinic space, right? We also have platforms that can help us capitalize on this data and through either analytical tools, business analytical tools, clinical analytical tools. It's all here. But clinicians actually using this data constructively, where once you have it, once you capture it, once you analyze it, what do you do with it? Like it just stays dormant. That's your opportunity, right? Like go to your employer. Like if you have a company that in your neighborhood and it's self-insured, like what stops you from taking your outcome measures and going in and saying, look, we have 75% success rate managing most musculoskeletal problems. And we usually manage them under $4,000 or less per encounter, right? We have all of the capacity to do this, but like I think data dies as soon as we capture it. It just stays there. So like getting this operational need to move the next step, like using this data constructively to support our autonomy, to support our output, clinical output out there, right?
Right, and that just somehow in the workflows and the processes within all the practices, they have to do something with it. Because it's useless. It's like people who take, I've got 3,000 pictures on my phone. I've never taken them off my phone. So if you want to see a picture of my kids from 10 years ago, I can show you to you only if I'm on my phone or message it. But like we need to take this information to where it's needed, where it needs to be seen. And I don't know the processes like above that. Like, I grew up in small private practice, and that's my whole world. But where is it through our practice management systems, where there's a way we can upload it? Is it being, part of the Medicare programs, like what is it, MIPS, I believe, right? Just to continue to report all this information. Whatever we do, we just need to do it. We can't just sit around and complain that, things aren't changing if we're not providing the data to prove that they can be changed.
Yeah, nothing changes when nothing changes, right?
Right.
It's right on. So I think with this, like, and since we're talking about data, we can look into again, go back into that clinical shortage and workforce shortage and clinical demands. And so we can see the statistics that are published by APTA, which is like a huge demand, like surplus or supply of clinicians, and then a clinical attrition or professional attrition of our workforce. And one of the observations is that the clinicians have this reimbursable time, which is time spent in a clinic. But then clinicians are also used of dedicating a lot of their personal time to work-related activities. So like, and that's not unknown for a clinician to spend an extra hour a day, right, charting and like finishing the charts, or like spending the weekends, like with your laptop on your, like on your couch, finishing off your notes. And to me, I think, like, especially from the entrepreneurial side, right, and the business side, is like your time is worth something, and then if you're giving your time away for free, like that, what gives? So, like, what do you think is a way to, for us as professionals, to either ask for this time to be reimbursable, or to ask for clinical providers to supply us with infrastructure that is supportive of our time, so that we have less time that we're spending on this documentation and notes and everything?
Well, it goes back to what we said before. I mean, there's no better time to be able to collect and transfer data and send it where you need to. There's no better time to incorporate technology and AI into what we're doing. If you're not looking at these resources, you're I don't know where to begin with this. So many people are fighting it. AI is not going to replace us. It's not going to replace us. No, it won't. But the clinic that incorporates AI is going to overtake or replace the clinic that doesn't. There's, I'm part owner of a practice here. I'm actually at it right now. And we have incorporated an AI scribe and bringing in more of the technology and these efficient systems in. Just the amount of time that it's freeing up. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, what is the stat? Like 28 to 30% of a clinician's time is spent on administrative tasks, right?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Sometimes more, but yeah.
Yeah, again, depending on how efficient you are as a clinician, but by incorporating an AI scribe and some of these other things that can help even with coding, and compliance checks, all these things will save us from errors, but also just save time. So our clinicians don't have to go home and not spend time with their family for an hour and a half while they're trying to get their notes done. So I think if you don't incorporate that, you're always going to have that struggle. And I think now it's exciting. If I was a young PT coming in right now, I would be excited. I mean, they don't know how it was. As an old PT, I'm excited because I remember carrying 20 charts to my house, and sitting on the couch and handwriting them while I'm trying to watch the Red Sox, back when they won the World Series, by the way. But anyway, so that's the biggest thing there. Also, I think as business owners, there needs to be administrative time put in there, and I think it's hard for some business owners to accept that or actually implement that into their clinician schedules because they have this transactional mindset. Well, if I give everyone 30 minutes, I have 5 therapists, and now there's 5 30-minute slots I'm missing out at. I'm getting $90 for each one of those slots, so I'm X amount of dollars I'm missing. And they're looking at it just as a transactional thing where maybe if you did give, this a little bit of administrative time, bring in technology, spend a little money on AI, maybe your staff won't be burnt out. Maybe they'll be a little more productive. Maybe they'll be more engaged with the patient. Maybe they'll actually enjoy their jobs. Maybe they won't quit in 2 years, right? So I think if you look at it as the whole system, the whole ecosystem, and not transactionally, I think you can open your eyes to many opportunities that can help.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question there.
Oh, perfect, right? So you're creating a feedback loop, and a perfect feedback loop where your employees, your clinicians invest their time and energy into your practice. So in return, you invest into your employees and your clinicians by getting smart systems, by getting smart platforms, by supporting their clinical workflow so that they don't have to spend 30% of their time doing administrative tasks, right? Like we're not administrators, we're professionals, we're professional clinicians. So like it's that positive feedback loop. The more we invest into our employees, the more our employees will then invest back into our practice, right? So
right, and then this goes into the conversation about why so many therapists are leaving and going cash-based because they don't want to deal with it anymore, right? And they think cash-based is the only way that they can enjoy their job. There's some in-network type models that are not good, and they're overbooking and burning their staff out. There are some in-network models that actually can work, and you can be profitable. You just have to look at your systems, you can diversify your revenue streams. There's so many different ways. I don't know if we're going to talk about that later or not, but it's possible. It's possible to be in network doesn't mean you have to accept all insurances. I think business owners have to know where their break-even point is. You should be able to roll off your tongue what it costs as a business owner, what it costs for every 30-minute slot or 40-minute slot, whatever you have, what it will cost you to get a patient seen there. So you know your break-even point. If you are contemplating an insurance contract with someone and their reimbursement, their payment is less than what your break-even point is, you got to really consider if you want to take that on or not. Because by the numbers, you're losing money every time that patients come in. So now you're going to see that on a grander scale as your bottom line is not as good. So now we're going to try to get more patients in, or there's all these other rash decisions you're going to make reactively because of that. So there are ways that we can keep good clinicians here, be profitable, continue to provide services to an in-network patient, because not everyone can afford cash-based services, right? If you can, and you can avoid the payers, awesome, go for it. But I think most of the country, some sort of hybrid model, I think would be more ideal. That's my opinion.
Yes and yes. So I think then, do you think that there's a fine balance, like that there's this point of equilibrium where we can reduce a point of overtaxing or overburdening our clinical staff, but at the same time still creating a structure that is both profit-centric and profit-oriented, where we as a clinic, we as a business can continue to generate revenue for our enterprise and beyond without burning off, right? So is there like a fine point of equilibrium, do you think, that can be created where like a hybrid point where both The wolves are fat and then the sheep are safe, right?
No, I mean, people are doing it all over the country, right? I mean, there are people
Mhm.
doing it just out of survival, and they might not be doing it well, but there's plenty of different business models out there that are successful. I don't think we can do it the same way we were doing it 15 years ago. So clinic owners, that have been in this field for 15, 20 years, you can't keep doing it like we're doing it in the 90s and the early 2000s. You have to modify. But there's a way now, especially when you look at RTM. We'd already talked about how AI can make it more efficient, bringing in other revenue streams that are cash-based, bringing wellness services, post-discharge programs. There's so many different ways depending on the population you treat. You have to diversify. It's like what they tell you about, when you're investing, you can't put all your money in one basket. Running a business should be the same. You can't just count on big payers to finally just agree to pay us what we feel we're worth, right? Because it may never happen. But if you have diversification where you're selling products, you're offering services, you've got memberships, you're providing value and working on keeping patients coming in the door, keeping your relationships with your referrers happy, it can absolutely happen. You just have to think outside the box.
Yeah, like the diversity, right? Like enriching the ecosystem to prevent like this churn. And I think part of it is we as a clinical community tend to be reactive, right? Like almost from the get-go. Like we react, we don't think proactively. So we're always shocked when our clinic volume drops in January, and then we're always stressed when our clinic volume is exceeding the
Surprise.
yeah, right. Like so this climate of reacting to these like what could be anticipated events in a clinical workflow in a patient volume. So instead of being proactive and actually knowing where you're going, having this roadmap in your head, right? Like as an entrepreneur, like as a private business owner, and saying that I'm comfortable where I am. So how do I maintain versus how do I grow, right? Like so do you practice just to survive, or are you practicing to thrive? And that thrive model is very different than survive model, right?
Right. Hugely different. And most people think that surviving is thriving, which until they experience an actual thriving business, and think about the typical private practice owner, right? They start off as maybe an unhappy clinician. They want to open their business. So it's probably a solopreneur, single practice type of business, and they start to get busy and they start bringing in employees. They're getting overwhelmed. They don't know how to manage employees really well. They don't know how to look at their financials really well. They don't know how to develop relationships with referrers because everything was coming in when they were working for someone. So all these different things they're learning. It's a lot and it can be overwhelming. So if they're just breaking even, we're doing good, I could pay my staff, yet the business owner doesn't take a vacation, is really not benefiting from taking all the risk and the stress that he or she is taking on as a business owner and financially being able to get rewarded from that. God forbid we talk about profits and business owners making money, but it's not a bad thing. And you can serve your team, you can serve your communities, you can treat patients, you can do all those things, and you can make money. And I don't know if you found this as well, Alex, but we as clinicians want to function and never talk about profit and money, except the business owners, right? And they need to share that information. I'm all about transparency with the team. You need to share that information on what the financial ramifications of hiring or firing someone or changing a process or taking this insurance versus that insurance with your team. They need to know.
Yeah, that absolutely spot on. So next slide, actually, and this is for our audience. We're trying something a little different. We're going to have this working survey. And for the survey, you have to scan the QR code. And then as you populate these answers, Michael and I will move on, and then we'll go back and read out the results of the survey. So the question is, what is the biggest workforce challenge in your clinic today? Is it recruiting, balancing workload, competing with large systems, reducing administrative burden, or creating career growth opportunities for our clinicians? So we'll have, you can scan this QR code, go online, quickly cast your vote. And then from there, we'll go to the next thing, and we will discuss exactly what Michael was saying. So while people are scanning, I'll have a little interesting caveat. So one best opportunities I've had recently is I got to see different practices around the country. And I just came back from Baltimore area, and I got to see what a good, what really well designed, well managed clinical practice looks like, right? So there's multiple satellites, there's multiple clinicians, but I think that the founder owner is fully invested into his staff. Like he is their advocate. He is there to support their well-being, to support their workflow. And to me, that like both, it was such a wonderful thing to observe, but also nice to see that like there are these satellites of growth all over the country, right? But how do we make them visible? How do we bring them to the surface so that the clinics that potentially are struggling can borrow? And part of it is what I think, Michael, what you bring, which is you have a world of expertise that can be referenced, right? But you have to know how to engage with Michael. You have to know how to ask for Michael's help in order
you also have to want to help. I'm going to interrupt, Alex, because I will argue that some of these practices that you're seeing, and there's plenty of them out there that have great owners who want to take care of their staff and are learning ways to reward their staff, to make sure that they're staying passionate and engaged and taking care of them, the mental, emotional, physically, like, avoiding the burnout. Those are probably the owners who are at the conferences learning, who are reaching out to coaches and consultants and trying to improve themselves as leaders so that can trickle down into their team. I argue the ones that aren't, either they're just so busy in the weeds and treating too many patients as a business owner that they're not even being able to come up for air to realize that they need help, or they're just not open to it. If you're not open to receiving help, I don't know how if you're going to be able to grow. Like I think, but none of us are in this alone, right? And I think if you're looking at your business as a transaction, you're hiring people, and you just want them to churn out bill units, see patients, bill units, see patients, make me money, then those are the ones that aren't going to last. And I know I'm not going to rattle off names, but I know so many practices throughout the country who have amazing, just good-hearted, empathetic owners. They're busy. People work hard. Like in outpatient orthopedics, you have to work hard. Like you're going to be busy, but they do it in a way, and they're rewarding their patients, and they care about their patients, and there's an energy and this exchange of positive energy between the team and the owner and the patients. It's this ecosystem that's just phenomenal, and that's why these people are thriving and they're growing. People are complaining they can't find therapists. I know practices that are growing and have no trouble finding therapists because they have built the reputation that they are the place to be to work. They are, they are a good practice. The owner is a good human being who's going to take care of you. You're going to see patients. You're going to be able to even work on your passions. Like, if you want to work with ballet dancers, maybe you can start a ballet program. Whatever it is, those are the practices who I think are going to be the most successful and who are right now. I'm seeing it everywhere.
Absolutely. Like, there's one that comes to top of mind here in Northbrook, Illinois, I think, or the owner is on this call too. But Amy, you know who you are. But absolutely.
Shout
so
out.
let's move. Shout out. So let's move to the next question. And this is one I think is actually is really important to you because you were just recently talking about it online, which is how did the physical therapy become so narrowly defined in the public eye as this like a fringe post-operative provider? And what can we do to shift this perception so that we can actually grow into a cumulative allied musculoskeletal professionals, right? The musculoskeletal primary care. So go ahead and expand on that.
So you saw my little rant post yesterday that I put on LinkedIn?
I did, yes.
Yeah, but it's all right. I think we're a product of our own faults in the past and how we've behaved as clinicians and as a profession over the years. I think right now there's definitely a brand awareness issue. It's one thing that people know that there's physical therapy out there. I mean, people know, and they don't. I pass 40 different PT clinics on my way here on a daily basis. We need to, one, get the community up to speed on what we can actually do. And one is what we talked about before, direct access. To this day, I still talk to people. Two of the worst conversations I have when I talk to people, like not in the field, but like patients of clinics out in the communities. They either have a horror story about the crappy care they received at a physical therapy place. They felt like, They were by themselves on a table doing straight leg raises for an hour. They didn't get anything out of it. There was no connection. There was no listening. There was no empathy or anything like that. That drives me crazy. And the other one is when they say, oh, do I need to go see my primary care physician first? Because they don't know, right? And it's not their fault. Is it our fault? Is it the primary care physician's fault? But we need to educate the primary care physicians, the orthopedics, all our referrers, chiropractors, whoever refers to us, we need to let them know if they don't already know. And we need to let the people know, because a lot of times if people just show up if they're more self-advocate, like they'll know not to even call their primary care physician. Because what's the old model look like, Alex? You wake up with low back pain, you call your primary care physician, you wait 3 weeks to get in to see your primary care physician. They don't know what to do about it. They're going to say, take some Advil, go see a spine specialist. Now you wait another 3 weeks to go see a spine specialist. You don't need surgery. Most likely it's just a mechanical low back pain. Then he or she doesn't want anything to do with you because you're not a surgical candidate, send you to PT. There's another 2 or 3 weeks that go by. By that point, the acute phase is gone. We had so many windows that we could have helped this patient, and now it's 6-8 weeks later. People are still in that mindset, and it's not just the older people, right? So what do? I just think we all need to shout it from the rooftops and come on a campaign about what we actually do and how people can access us better. I think, the APTA puts out information and marketing kits that we can use, and there's a lot of that in there. But we, on the front lines, have to do this, whether it's just within our conversations with our patients, our conversations with our referrers. Maybe we're putting more social media posts. Maybe we're actually doing mailings and let people know, educate them because they don't know. And that's just right now, I think that's a huge hurdle for us.
Yeah. So let's take just a little break and review the survey. So we had a very nice response to the survey, and by vast majority, 60% of responders said that recruiting and keeping qualified PTs is their biggest workplace challenge. That two trailing parts are reducing administrative burden on staff and creating career growth opportunities. But the recruitment part, right, is that setting up the environment, setting up the system that works, right, is key. So this is really not surprising, but interesting. So to follow up to what you were saying, Michael, if you were there's three economic models, right? There's the microeconomic model where we can be really good about managing our own practice. There's the macroeconomic model, which is policy and legislature and everything that governs what we do. And then there's the mesoeconomic model, which is like networks. We're all parts of these small networks. So what kind of message do you think we can send, that single most important message, to provide better awareness to the public, to highlight what we do, like the value that musculoskeletal professionals bring to our community?
I don't know if there's a single message. I think it depends on your community and who you're actually speaking to, but I think we need to have a few different messages targeted to the right receivers, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you, Alex. I think it's a big job. It's not difficult. I think we just all have to be on board and, roll up our sleeves and get out there and relay this message. If you're asking for like a specific target or a specific, what's the actual wordage we need, I think it's different.
I think maybe is there a medium, right? Like, so do we spend 5% of our time actually go sharing our opinion to Congress, right? Like right now there's a move to reduce the cost cutting from the Congress. So is our way of sending, extracting our value as profession best communicated through larger systems, or do we just continue to create this grassroots effect, right? Because you're a practice owner, right? So you are part of your community. So right. Since you're a part of your community, I think there's an opportunity to make every person that walks through the door, that becomes part of your network, and that is your advocate, that's your champion, right? So every patient that comes through is your champion that goes around and tells everyone else, right? That's the word of mouth that we've relied on consistently, but we're only relying on it from one specific domain. Potentially, right. That becomes a champion for the industry itself too, right?
100%. And you're right, with me being a private practice owner, and even when I always went and used, delivering value as how I marketed, right? When someone came in the door, we had an unbelievable patient experience. We over-delivered on value. We got good outcomes. We made it fun. We connected. We listened to our patients. and they went out and told, and there's this word of mouth. And nowadays, word of mouth with social media can be national. It's not just going to be within, a 15-mile radius of your clinics. So I tend to lean towards that avenue when it comes to like, how do we get our message out? Because, I wasn't doing the advocacy in DC, like so many people in our profession are, and I thank them. And, I never did that. I was doing the grassroots and frontline type of work, trying to get our message out there. And I think we need the people up there, but I think a lot of it, and when we have our patients going back to the doctors, telling them the experience that they're having in PT, that, and we've had instances where people did come direct access, and then we reached out to the primary care physician. We're shocked that they came. Well, why would you see my patients before they saw me? They didn't understand that we can do this. And like, you need to be aware that we can take these musculoskeletal patients. They're not going to wait 3 weeks to get in and clog up your waiting room. This is what we're here for. So we need to have that conversation with the primary care physicians as well. I know I'm going off on a little tangent here, but for me, when you ask, I would say grassroots, start with the community and let it spread from there.
Perfect, right? Because that is really what we are for. I think every satellite, every clinic is representative of the community that they're catering to. Whether it's like
Right.
a more industrially focused clinic that's catering to like these injured workers, or it's a sports-oriented clinic that's catering to a specific sport, or maybe just a global sports. But it's like, that is our community. That becomes our tribe, and then
Right.
being our tribe, right? So.
Right. And it goes back to the question you asked, like the message we send out there. I think the message, if you're a sports medicine clinic in an area where there's colleges and like NCAA athletes, and those are your patients, there's a message that you're going to send to them and their referrers, different than if you're in an industrial town and you're doing a lot of occupational health, versus the message you're going to send to the employers and what that message is going to be, versus if you're in rural, like middle America, and you're the only therapy clinic in 200 miles, then there's a different message you need to send to those people. So I think, but getting the theme there that, you can come directly to us. This is what we can do to help. This is why it's beneficial to come directly to us. However that's packaged, I think we can do it in different ways.
Yeah, 100%. And we like, no time is better than now, right?
Absolutely.
So let's move to the next topic, which is building versus extracting value. And then the framework here is that building value, at least for the purpose of our conversation, is more of a positive connotation, where whatever your investment is into your staff, into your clinic, into your community, that builds value in your practice, right? Versus extracting value, which is kind of like tapping into, at least again, for the context of this conversation, it's tapping into the same well that's been drying out, but you keep chirping away from it, right? So
Right.
how does a entrepreneur, how does a business owner recognize that they are in a building value domain versus if they're in a more of like a extracted value domain? How do they transition to more of a value building proposition as a practice owner? What are some of the strategies and some of your personal experiences?
So before I even get into that, I heard a great analogy, and I forgot from who. When you talk about building value, you think about it like farmers, right? They are nourishing the land. They're taking care of the soil to build crops for future benefit, right? Versus mining, where you come in, you're just like taking the resource, don't care what's going to happen next, take it, sell it, take it, sell it. So it's a totally different mindset. I like that analogy. For me, it works. I got a weird brain, but I think for me, that really stuck. Now, if you're having trouble keeping your staff, if burnout is an issue, if your staff is complaining that they can't maintain the patient load that they're treating, if your patients you have a high cancellation rate, if patients are dropping off, if you see all these negative KPIs happening, I think you really got to relook and see, maybe are you extracting or trying to extract too much and there's nothing left, like the well's dry and you're still trying to do it, or trying to squeeze water from a stone type of thing, versus if your staff is not leaving, they're happy. Are you asking your staff if they're happy? Are you doing like a net promoter for your staff, which I invite everyone, you should be doing, because you might not know how happy your staff is unless you ask. So I think those are the signs. Like if things are looking bad numbers wise, and you really take an honest look at it, or have a third party come in and take an honest look at your numbers and look at staff culture and all these things, I think you'll be able to tease out if you're extracting or building.
Yeah, and I think that aligns perfectly with the APTA vision, right? Where it's access plus a sustainable workforce versus short-term revenue generation. I think it's that having enough vision to know exactly what it is, where you want to be, instead of just like surviving every day, right? Like and not really thriving.
Right. And that just ties
So
into what we talked about earlier, where if an owner's just on a transactional mindset, you're here, I'm paying you to see patients so I can make a certain amount of money off of your back and how you're working. It's just money in, money out. That's all they're looking at. Then most likely they're going to be the extractors of value and trying to get water from a stone. And the ones who are really taking care of their staff and their, checking in with them, having good, honest conversations about how they're doing and how their health is, getting honest feedback from the staff, offering opportunities for development, and also just giving them breaks and flexible schedules and all these other things that people really want and value. I think now you're looking at the people who are building value, and they're going to have the long-term success. Even though maybe, profit loss immediately, they might not look great, but I guarantee that's just going to get better and better and better, and they're going to have a stronger foundation to build their business off of every day of the week.
Every day, right? Like it's all about building. So now we're up to the second survey of our webinar, and this one is a little bit of a self-reflection, right? So just to like on a conversation of building versus extracting value. Like think of, is your clinic more focused on building or extracting value? And these are some of your choices, right? Like, so like the build versus extract, and how do you label value in context of this conversation? So it'll be interesting to see what the findings are, right? And while people are answering, we're going to move to the next proposition and the next slide, which has to do more with systems and understanding of that decisions of smart systems and integrating these systems. So there is such a thing, and I've observed it, where over digitized clinics, right? They're few, but there's clinics that have every bell and whistle, every toy under the sun. And they're just like they're in it to like experiment, and they don't have any one consistency. And that, but by majority, like from my experiences, is that most of our providers still have these like traditional bare, like four walls, four plinths, and a reception desk. So how and what are some of the steps, do you think? And do you think it's a worthwhile venture to explore technologies, explore smart systems, explore like these like AI-driven AMR systems and revenue cycle systems into our practice? Or are we comfortable like still kind of like surviving on like, I bought into this EMR 15 years ago. It still works. Like it doesn't do a good job. Like I'm losing 30% of my revenue to like this human error, but I'm okay with it. Like, so what do you think is the threshold, the tipping point where somebody's like, it may be time to digitize. It may be time to look into these systems.
I don't know how to answer like where the threshold is, but I think I said it earlier. If you're not looking at technology in these systems and AI, you're going to be left behind. And to be honest, when AI started coming in, I even dug my heels. I'm an old guy. I was like, no, it's not the way we used to do it, right? These young kids, these whippersnappers and their technology. But the past year, I've been on a mission to learn as much as I can about AI and technology and how it can benefit my clients. And it's, you have to. Like, there's no reason you should not be embracing technology and looking at systems. If you've been with the same EMR and the EMR hasn't changed, the EMR has evolved, right? So there's so many practice management systems that have evolved. And now I don't know how many do not incorporate some sort of AI or are affiliated with a third-party AI that can come in and be integrated right into the system. You have to. Like, I don't even think it's if it's, no, you have to. And when it should have been, you should have started that yesterday, in my opinion. And I think that is going to help. I mean, that's going to help. So there's that part of it. And I think you made, and I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent here, but you talked about, a typical clinic, you got a front desk and you have four plinths and in a bare four walls. Like that's going to go to to the whole patient experience. Like you've got to invest and really look at what your clinic looks, feels, smells, and and and
Yeah.
uh, and functions like. Right? You need we need to treat our patients like they're high paying customers because most of them are spending a lot of money for our services.
Yeah.
Think of how many people with these high deductible plans they're coming in and dropping $200-$300 for an initial evaluation. They're paying over $100 for a visit. They're coming in and spending their hard-earned money. If your place is ugly, stinky, dirty, messy, they're not going to come back. I'm going to argue your cancellation rate is going to be higher with someone who took time to really like mindfully think about what's in the clinic and how it looks and how it feels, because that's extremely important. And it's important, and the patients aren't going to tell you it's important, but they're going to feel it. If you don't have that, people are just going to drop off because they're just like, I don't know, I just don't want to go today. Versus if you've got a fun clinic and you've got a rock star kick-ass front desk person who greets the patients wonderfully, and there's laughter and there's music playing and it's a fun environment, I can guarantee your drop-offs are going to be less. The patient experience has to be top-notch. So between incorporating technology, AI, opening your eyes, just do it. Don't even think about it. You have to do it. And then spending a little time, energy, and money on improving the whole environment and the patient experience. And I think that's probably the top two survival strategies right now.
And funny enough, right? Like, so there's most of us know about patient-reported outcome measures, but there's also something that's called a patient-reported experience measure. And patient-reported experience measure is a way for us to gauge some of the contextual factors you were just referencing, like to gauge, like, are the people actually happy coming into your place?
Right.
Are they
Do you have any numbers and results of any of that yet?
Oh, it's been around. So like, think of like if you just Google or if you go on PubMed and look up PREM, PREM, not PROM, patient recorded experience measures.
I'm
Like
writing it
it's
down right
real.
now.
Yeah, and it's real. So let's go over the results of our second survey, which is again like interesting. Is your clinic more focused today on building or extracting value? And 80% of our responders are building value. They're implementing scalable, sustainable systems. So which is good to see, right? So this, so like people who are attending this webinar understand that they have to invest, they have to build value. Like they can't just continue to tap into the same dry well. And then there's, of course, 20% of people I feel like it's a little bit of both. There's balancing short-term gains with long-term positioning. You can't lose sight of your immediate operation without long-term productivity, right? So yeah, that's really interesting to see. So then the next topic of conversation, we're going to go a little bit further, which is the perspective of what is the allied health. Well, how does the allied health look like? Not right now. And in the beginning, you were saying that we, like APTA has this vision 2037 when we become like balanced in equilibrium. But really, what do the next 5 years look like for our discipline or our industry? And how does it look like in your perspective?
How does it look? I think it's going to be really exciting. I think the people who are embracing all the change in the technology, I think the people who are investing in their staff and taking care of their employees, and the ones who are optimizing their patient experience are the ones who are going to thrive. Look, there's no shortage of business for us, right? And there's not going to be anytime soon. People are always going to need it. And with the aging population, I mean, the need is there. So survival is going to be to the ones who embrace technology, take care of their team, open to the changes that are coming, and provide ultimate patient experience. And I think it's an exciting time for those motivated owners that want to take this on and really succeed. And it's happening. Like there are so many successful clinics right now. And I think, I'm not surprised at that stat that a lot of the people on this webinar are value builders. They took the time out of their day to sit here and listen to us two schmucks talk, right? Where they could have saw two more patients and had that, immediate, we got to, I made an extra $175 instead of going to listen to those guys talk. So that's what I think. The future is exciting. I think PT is going to look different. And also just like remote therapeutic monitoring, just the telehealth, there's so many resources and so many ways. And now there's coding for these things where you can get reimbursed for it, because so many people, they're only hung up on the only change they'll make is if they can get paid for it. Can I bill for it? Right? Bring in technology. Can I get paid for it? Is there a code for it? But there's so much more to building your business than that, and that's that transactional mindset versus the global mindset of building that whole ecosystem in the business. So those who are building it are going to survive, and I think we're going to see some amazing clinics providing some amazing services in home, virtual, in the clinic. I think it's going to look great. I'm excited about it.
I am too, and I think that's a perfect segue into the question and answer part of our webinar. Because I think that was a perfect closure where being optimistic that the future is bright, and you have to build it yourself, right? So we are opening this floor for question and answer, and we have already one question here privately, which was what was your, when did you decide to sell your practice, and what were some of the key parts that motivated you to walk away from your private practice?
I get that question a lot. Okay, so when did I sell it? That was the first part of the question?
What was the deciding factor for you to sell your practice?
There wasn't one deciding factor. I was about 20 years in at that point. This was still during COVID when it happened. I was going through a lot of personal, I had deaths in the family, had a lot of stuff going on, and I wanted to do something different. I had a great practice. I was doing well. It's not like my practice was failing and I needed to jump ship. So we were doing well. And I just started entertaining different buyers to see what it would look like. And it was multiple. So it wasn't anything to do with the business going down. I think it was more me personally. I needed to do something different. I've been treating patients since 1998. I was running my business since 2001 when I started it. I think I still wanted to do something and provide value. I just needed to do it in a different way. And I thought that selling and exiting and taking some of the value out of the business that I had built for 20 years, well, it was the right thing for me to do, for me and my family. Awesome. And it opened me up to do what I'm doing now, which I love, and helping other private practices start, grow, and exit their businesses successfully. Because I did it with a lot of mistakes.
I think we're all absolutely in benefit to you doing this, and I think I'm grateful for you to be open to provide your expertise. So we have a question from Amy's iPhone. What is the best way to integrate AI into your private practice? AI can mean so many things. What would be the most effective?
I think look at your systems that you have in your practice right now. See where the biggest hiccups are. See where you're finding the most stress and the most negativity within. Is it on the clinical side or the administrative side, right? Because you can use AI clinically, like as simple as an AI scribe, which is not very expensive. If it's all about paperwork and keeping the clinicians happy, maybe you invest a little money there, do some research to find a great AI scribe that either is offered through your EMR or that can integrate with your EMR. But now you can use AI also to do benefit checks and authorizations and all the initial administrative work that can unload your front desk. Is your administrative staff really burnt and unhappy? And if you don't know, I think spending some time, I don't know how big your practice is, Amy, but have conversations, have honest conversations with your manager or your clinical staff, and see where the most room for improvement can happen, and see if AI can help you out there, or talk to the administrative staff. I don't know if you do billing in-house or you outsource it. I think there's really simple, affordable AI strategies to help both of us.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Michael. So now we have a question from an important leadership trait that clinic owners and directors will need to future-proof their practices.
I'm going to get really, I'm turning into an old hippie here. Empathy. Empathy, I kind of bring in connection with that as well. From your relationships. So it's all about relationships, really. So maybe it's one theme, but I use 3 different words: empathy, connection, relationships. I'm actually doing a talk for the APTA of Massachusetts in a few weeks on building relationships and how it can help your bottom line. Your relationship with your staff. If you have an unhappy staff, you're not going to have a successful business. You're not going to have good outcomes. It's relationship with your referrers. If you don't have good relationships with your referrers, you're not going to be able to bring in a constant flow of new patients. If you don't have good relationships with your patients, you're not going to have happy patients. You're going to have empty schedules, right? So it's 3 parts. Think about this concentric circles, right? You got to build good relationships within the business, good relationships with your referrers, good relationships with your patients. All those things have to be taken really seriously, and that all comes down to empathy, and it starts at the top. As the leader, if you don't know how to communicate and, be an active listener and really hear what your people are saying and what's behind the words and complaints they might have, then get some training on how to do that. Because I don't care, all the shiny new tools, you mentioned something earlier about all the new technology, all the AI, the shiny new equipment, nothing is going to be successful if you're not building good, strong relationships, if your team does not respect you and feel connected to you in the business, but also felt like you've got their best interests in mind. And that's hard to do because some clinicians are always going to look as the owners like, oh, he's just making all the money, we're doing all the work, blah, blah, blah. Maybe share the numbers with them, but there's ways that you communicate. And some of that is making sure that the patients know how every decision you make affects the business in a positive or negative way. How every decision they make, everything they do is going to have a positive or negative effect on the business. I hope I answered the question in there.
No, that's perfect. That's like a very well articulated, Michael. So now the next question is from Arul, and that is it no longer sufficient for practices to simply survive, and why is building long-term value essential for both businesses and clinical impact? So
why is just surviving not enough? Is that
why is building value now more important than ever? Essentially,
I think it's an essential nutrient to keep your practice going. I think if you're not doing that, you might be surviving now, but survival is going to be a lot harder without putting some time into increasing the value. Don't know if I answered that question properly, but
I think it's a long-term investment, right? Short-term versus long-term. So
it has to. I mean, so let's go back to something really quick, and we might be out of time, but if you're not looking to grow with this big business and get multiple sites, that's okay. You still can provide value within your little ecosystem, right? And if you're financially well off and you don't need to make a lot of money, awesome. Then you might not have to worry as much. And if you're running a business to make sure your staff gets paid well and they're happy, great. If that's good for you, then go for it. Not everyone just has to build, and then exit, or build, and then pass it on to someone. I know plenty of solopreneurs who just work in a small room in a gym, and they are the happiest clinicians in the world, and they're not looking to build anything. So that's fine as well. But no matter how big or small you are, the value has to be built. And I think you will survive no matter how big you are.
Absolutely. So before we move on to the next, probably the last question, I want everyone to know that these are Michael's contacts and Michael's credentials, and please follow up, and please find a way to contact Michael for your needs. He is a wealth of knowledge and just an absolute resource for any private practice owner. And we're so grateful to have you, Michael, as part of this process. So thank you for this.
So I'm happy to be here. Alice, can I just interrupt real quick? So on the screen there on the bottom, the downloaded complimentary audiobook, that's actually an ebook. It's a PDF, not an audiobook, just to let people know. So feel free to do that. And also through my website on the top, there's a link to my Calendly. I'll be more than happy to jump on a 30-minute phone call with anyone just to ask some questions. It's not a sales call. If you just want to vent or talk about something, or you need an old man's opinion about something, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys.
Awesome. And I thank you for that. And it's an absolute, you're talking about building value. That's building value when you actually contact Michael and start a conversation. Like the most important first step is the first step to start a conversation. So we're almost out of time, so we'll try to answer it in 1 minute. But how can a clinic owner create a robust retention plan that includes meaningful mentorship and career path for their staff? In 30 seconds or less.
30 seconds or less. Have a documented plan for mentorship. Have a documented plan for growth, whether that's an equity share for businesses, or possibility of managing or opening another clinic. in full transparency from the beginning. What does your new employee mean to the business? What does the business mean to them? It's a two-way street, and get that, right off the bat, even before they're hired, in the interview process, have these transparent conversations right from the beginning.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And so, Michael, thank you very much for being a part of this process, and thank you to the audience for dedicating an hour of your life to listen to old schmucks talk. It's been the best, and I think it's such a privilege to have you as a part of this process. So, thank you for being part of our professional community, Michael, and thank you, attendants, for being here. And look forward to the next one and many conversations with you, Michael. So, thank you. And
thank you, Alex. And for those of you who might not know Alex as well as I do, he's a wealth of knowledge. I've made comments on LinkedIn that I don't even need Google anymore. I just ask Alex anything and he finds out the information for me. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I guess.